Welcome in. I'm Hunter Kanoki, and this is Fool's FAQ, a show where I take the internet's most burning questions and give you an answer that'll make you the smartest person at your next aquarium visit. On today's episode, why your pet fish might outsmart you. Picture this. You're standing in front of a goldfish bowl watching Bubbles, your goldfish swim her endless laps, and you think, gosh, poor little thing, she's probably forgotten where she started by the time she completes one circle. Maybe you've even justified keeping her in that tiny bowl by telling yourself, well, she won't remember being in a bigger tank anyway. Goldfish only remember things for 3 seconds. Here's the thing. If you believe that, then you've been outsmarted by a fish that supposedly can't remember its own name. And today, we're going to deep dive into what goldfish actually can remember, how scientists figure this out, and if this myth has any truth to it. So let's start with the truth that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about your finned friends. Goldfish do not have 3-second memories. They don't have 10-second memories. Heck, they don't even have 3-minute memories. According to decades of scientific research, goldfish can remember things for weeks, months, and in some cases, even years. Now, the evidence is overwhelming. Back in 1966, nearly 60 years ago, researchers at the University of Michigan conducted a study that should have put this myth to bed permanently. They trained goldfish to avoid electric shocks, and the fish not only learned this task, but got better at it over multiple days. This wasn't a fluke or lucky guess. This was clear evidence that goldfish could form and retain memories. But the real kicker came from more recent studies that make goldfish look like underwater geniuses. Researchers at Oxford University trained goldfish to swim exactly 70 centimeters in a tank, then turn around for a food reward. These fish didn't just learn the distance. They remembered it so well that they could nail it even when researchers change their starting position or alter the visual cues around them. That's not just memory, that's spatial intelligence that would make a GPS jealous. And if you thought that was impressive, wait until you hear about the goldfish that learned to drive. No, really, scientists in Israel actually taught goldfish to operate a wheeled platform, essentially a fish-operated vehicle to reach targets in a room. Now try doing that with a 3-second memory. Now, you might be wondering, if goldfish are so smart, where did this ridiculous myth come from? Well, the answer is both fascinating and a little embarrassing for us humans. The precise origin isn't definitively documented, but researchers believe the myth likely emerged from simple observation. Picture someone watching a goldfish swimming around in circles in a small bowl, seemingly oblivious to its surroundings, and thinking, well, this fish acts like it's experiencing everything for the first time. It was a poetic observation that somehow morphed into accepted fact. The myth was also reinforced by how we used to measure animal intelligence, by comparing everything to human standards. This approach completely ignored that different species evolved different types of intelligence suited to their environments. The goldfish doesn't need to remember human phone numbers, but it absolutely needs to remember where predators lurk, where food sources are, and which areas of its territory are safe. There's also a darker psychological element at play here. I mean, some experts suggest that we cling to the goldfish memory myth because it makes us feel better about keeping these animals in tiny, unstimulating environments. If Bubbles can't remember being in a larger tank, then that cramped bowl isn't so bad, right? The reality is that goldfish brains are far more sophisticated than we give them credit for. While they don't have a hippocampus like mammals do, they have something called a dorsal pallium that serves a similar memory function. This brain region allows them to form both short-term and long-term memories, process spatial information, and even engage in social learning. Scientists have documented goldfish performing tasks that require complex memory systems. They can learn to associate sounds with feeding times and remember those associations for months. They can navigate mazes, recognize individual goldfish they haven't seen in weeks, and even distinguish between different pieces of classical music. Seriously, they can tell the difference between Bach and Stravinsky. One particularly impressive study showed goldfish learning to operate a lever for food, but only during specific hours of the day. I mean, think about what this requires. The fish had to remember how to use the lever, remember when it would work, and have some form of time awareness. Many goldfish owners report their pets actually swimming to the front of their tank when they enter the room, clearly recognizing their human caretakers. Some fish even learn to perform tricks or respond to their names. I mean, these behaviors are impossible with a 3-second memory. But here's where the story gets really interesting. The 3-second memory myth has actually spawned another myth that's even more relevant to our daily lives. You've probably heard that human attention spans are now shorter than those of goldfish, supposedly shrinking from 12 seconds in the year 2000 to just 8 seconds today. But this claim, popularized by a Microsoft report, has been thoroughly debunked by neuroscientists who point out that attention span is just far too complex to measure with a single number. The irony is delicious. I mean, we've created a false myth about goldfish memory, then use that false myth to create another false myth about human attention spans. It's myths all the way down, and none of them are particularly helpful for understanding how memory and attention actually works in any species. What's actually happening with human attention isn't that we're becoming more forgetful, it's that we're dealing with information overload. I mean, our brains are adapting to filter massive amounts of content quickly, which can make us feel scattered, but doesn't necessarily impair our memory capacity. We're not becoming goldfish, we're becoming information processing machines dealing with an unprecedented flood of data. So, what can we learn from your fin friends? Well, first, intelligence comes in many forms, and what looks simple on the surface might be surprisingly complex underneath. Goldfish have evolved memory systems perfectly suited to their aquatic world, allowing them to remember food sources, recognize threats, navigate territories, and even form social relationships. And second, the goldfish memory myth serves as a perfect example of how misinformation spreads and persists, even in the face of overwhelming contradictory evidence. Scientists have been debunking this myth for over half a century, yet it remains embedded in popular culture. It's a reminder that we should question common knowledge and look for actual evidence rather than accepting convenient assumptions. So, the next time someone jokes about having the memory of a goldfish, you can politely inform them that they're comparing themselves to an animal that can actually remember complex spatial layouts, distinguish between musical compositions, and operate simple machinery. In a world full of myths and misconceptions, the truth about goldfish memory reminds us that intelligence takes many forms, that scientific evidence should trump popular belief, and that even the humblest creatures might be far more remarkable than we assume. Your pet goldfish isn't just a pretty decoration, it's a thinking, learning, remembering being that might just be smarter than the myth that's followed it around for decades. Thank you so much for listening to Fool's FAQ. Feel free to leave a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts, as it also helps new listeners discover the show. For more fascinating answers to your burning questions, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and always stay curious.